As America's largest cities continue to deal with record high homelessness, one congressional candidate from Washington state says the solution is housing the homeless in your neighborhood. Joining us now to discuss is Democratic Socialist candidate for Congress, Rebecca Parson. Rebecca, thank you so much for taking the time to come on National Report today. We appreciate that. Absolutely. If I can talk to you about that and just start with that point, a large segment, as you know, of the homeless are individuals with a history of violence, mental illness, drug addiction. That might deter folks that maybe want to take those in. What do you say to residents who are maybe afraid to bring that in or don't want rampant drug use and possible violent crime in their backyards or near their homes?
Well, I'd say actually that many people are homeless who you don't realize because they're going to work every day. You see them on the street. They look like somebody who's just going to work. And additionally, out of the 600,000 people who are homeless in our country, 40,000 are veterans and 120,000 are children. So there's a lot of people out there who need homes. There are over 13 million empty homes in this country. And it's not just in rural areas, small town areas. It's in expensive blue areas like mine as well. Everywhere across the country, there's actually more empty homes in New York City than there are homeless people. And so many of these homes are owned by corporations. You've got companies like BlackRock Investment, Zillow buying up entire neighborhoods. You have these empty corporate-owned homes. Why don't we use them for what they're intended for, which is actually housing people like veterans and kids who are homeless?
So you're saying if a company or if an individual has an empty home, why not give that empty home to someone who does not have a home? Is that correct?
Yeah, why not have the government buy it at a fair market rate from the corporate owner so that it can be used for actual housing? And then somebody who's living in there, have them put in improvements, improve it, and make the house actually habitable, make it look nicer. I think it's really a win-win. And you have so many empty homes, 28 empty homes for every homeless person in this country.
I also know this, you've called for a $30 minimum wage to combat poverty. From the perspective of those small business owners who are struggling with the cost of inflation, as you well know as well, they would have to hire less workers because they couldn't afford that $30. How do you pass something like that? How do you push for $30 an hour when there are many businesses that would not be able to afford that or have to lay off others to afford it?
Yeah, well, the $30 an hour number, it seems very high. It's much higher than the $7.25 current federal rate that we have, but it's based on the fact you can look at the MIT living wage calculator and see that $30 per hour is the floor everywhere in this country, rural, small town, suburban, urban, East Coast, West Coast, middle of the country, Southwest, everywhere. $30 per hour is the floor for one adult to support one child in this country. And currently the way the economy is structured is that corporations get billions and trillions of dollars of subsidies. The COVID pandemic was essentially a transfer of wealth over to corporations while American small businesses went under. What if we stopped giving away billions and trillions of dollars in subsidies to multinational corporations and instead gave them to American small business owners to pay their employees? So subsidize that $30 an hour minimum wage instead of $1 million salaries for CEOs on Wall Street.
It sounds like, though, your beef, if I may, would be with large corporations, so those with 500 or more employees, not necessarily with those less than 100 employees. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think that I'm a small business owner myself. I pay $30 an hour, and I think that American small businesses need more support. You could walk down any street. I could walk down where I live in Tacoma and see shuttered, boarded up storefronts, businesses that have gone under, restaurants, mechanics, hair salons, so many important vital businesses that have just gone under because the government chose to let them go under while Walmart, Amazon, other huge corporations continue to thrive.
Rebecca, can I ask what your business is? What service you provide?
Yeah, I help businesses grow their business, find more customers.
And you pay $30 an hour?
I do.
Okay. How can folks get an application? That seems to be a good starting rate.
Well, Google me, you can find out more, but I really do believe that $30 per hour, and you can look at the data as well. It's not something that I'm just pulling out of a hat. You can look at the MIT living wage calculator and see $30 per hour is the minimum in areas like New York City, Seattle, San Francisco. It's even more. But I think one thing we can do, in addition to having subsidies to American small businesses to pay these rates, is have a national jobs program like we had during the Great Depression, which was really popular in my district, in the cities, and also in the rural parts of my district that voted for Trump. People still remember those jobs programs. They liked them. And so why not have a jobs program where you can stay where you live? You shouldn't have to move to Seattle or San Francisco or New York City to have a good life, to buy a home and start a family. You should be able to live where you want to live, wherever that is, and get a good job that can pay a living wage. You could start a family and buy a home working 40 hours a week.
All right. Well, there you go. Rebecca Parson, Democratic candidate for Congress in the state of Washington. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts on your campaign. We do appreciate that.
Thank you.
You got it.